I ended up getting stabbed in my legs at 16 due to coming from this estate and another estate fighting estate. You know, we used to bump into each other all the time, and fights broke out. I spoke to I remember I was in Bali on holiday with my wife, and Paul Lambert phoned me, and spoke to him. And I don't know if you come across him. I know he's had a rough time since leaving Norwich with the fans and stuff, but for me, he sold me the dream. He sold me the club, and when I went and met him, it was just, this is where I want to be. I want to come to Norwich now. Just got promoted to the Premier League.
Welcome to the Getting Back Up podcast with me, Olympic medal winning boxer Anthony Ogogo. This podcast is your weekly dose of hope and inspiration. Because I talk to people that have done great things about their life and or career, but only after suffering or amid suffering massive setback and adversity. Today's guest is Bradley Johnson. From the world of football, Bradley had a glittering 20-year career. He's just now recently pulled the curtain down on his 20-year career, amassing over 600 appearances, many of them, over 100 of them, in the Premier League. From Hackney to the Premier League, Bradley is that tiny fraction of a percent of people that dream to make it to the Premier League, and he actually made it. He didn't have an easy journey. He's very much a journeyman pro footballer. He did it the hard way, getting released by Arsenal at 15 years old. Bradley got caught up in some gang warfare and got stabbed. Now, being stabbed as a 16-year-old in East London from the council estate, his life could have went down many different avenues, and Bradley took the worst thing to happen to him and he made it the best thing to happen to him, and it was that which made him become a footballer. This truly is such an inspiring story, one that you can enjoy and learn from, whether you're a football fan or not. And this podcast, I really urge you to play this to your children, play this to your nephews and nieces, any youngster that has an ambition to do something great or be something great. They need to hear this, because Bradley has so many nuggets of inspiration and motivation in this podcast. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Mr. Bradley Johnson, one of my favourite players who's ever pulled on the famous yellow and green shirt for Norwich City. Mate, welcome to the Getting Back Up podcast.
No problem, mate. Thanks for having me. It's been way too long. How have you been?
Mate, I've been good, busy, stressed out. Life has been lifing. That's what I say now. Life doing this stuff. I'm trying to, especially these last few months, I'm trying to find the beauty in the struggle.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is not about me, mate. This is firmly about you. You have literally just now, brought the curtain down on your amazing, glittering 20-year career as a professional footballer in England, over 600 games. And in this podcast, mate, I'm going to ask you 12 questions. You're going to go toe-to-toe, 12 rounds with Anthony Ogogo. Can you handle it?
I know you've been out of the ring a while now, haven't you?
I've got a bit rusty, mate. I fancy your chances, not mine. But question one, round one, is the most important question of the day. As I mentioned, 20-year career, 600 games, played with some top clubs. How the bloody hell are you, mate? How you doing?
I'm really well, really well. You say 20 years, it's a long time, but in sport and in life, really, it goes like that. I remember my first debut like it was about a month ago. And I've always said that to young lads, like, make the most of, in any career you do, if it's football, in any industry you go into, make the most out of it every day, because it goes like that. And 20 years, it's been a long, hard 20 years struggle, but yeah, it's been sad for me to call it a day, but I think I was ready. I'm got my eyes on the next step now, the next journey, and I'm excited about that.
We're going to come to that. But we've got so much to get through in your career, because 20 years, mate, at this level, boom, goodness me. And also, you said it's been a long, hard 20 careers. A long, hard 20 years. You're still a handsome bastard. But listen, there are millions of boys and girls as well now. They grow up and they want to become Premier League footballers. They want to play professional football. And most don't do it. Like most don't do it. The 0.00001% actually do it. So mate, what was it about you? So, and I've heard you say this, and you've told me this privately, and you've said this like publicly as well. You were never the most talented.
No.
You weren't the most gifted. So why did you make it and I never made it? Or most people don't make it. What is it about you? Like, take me back to the beginning. Why did you have this amazing career? How?
I wish I had a real good answer for you, like a magic wand or something, because you say everyone will do it. But, for me, and I say this to the young kids now, is I just had that self-belief, always believing in myself, and and that come with hard work. I've had a lot of knockbacks, like yourself, probably in your career. You always get knocked back, but it's how you handle them knockbacks to move forward. Growing up, where I grew up was a struggle, so I've always had to fight for everything. And when you have to fight for everything, you always want more. You never settle. So I never got to a point in my career where I made my debut or I signed my first professional contract and thought, oh, I've made it now. I always strive for more, wanted more, and I think that's what kept me going these many years. I've had many promotions, and I always wanted more. Always wanted more. So, yeah, hard work, determination, and most importantly, self-belief. Because I've had people tell me that I'm not good enough, and maybe I wasn't good enough. But my self-belief, I always believed in myself. And as you said there, I've seen throughout my career and when I was younger, many players who were better than me at football. Like, I'll hold my hands up, they were better than me at football. But what they probably didn't have is my drive and determination to think, how am I going to get better than them? And I always had that in the back of my mind. When I was at Arsenal, I got released. It was, how am I going to get better than them? And, the only way you're going to better yourself is practice and train and work. And, I say to kids now, you've got to be obsessed. You've got to be obsessed with it. You've got to train every day like it's your last training session. Be the best you can be every single day. Go into training. I think there are times in training when, it's hard when you have a bad day or something, you don't want to get up and go and train. But, I think that's what separates people who have had a long career in the game or in any industry than, the people coming in for 1 or 2 years, that drive to keep on going and keep on striving for more.
Mate, you're saying these words and they're hitting me, man. They're hitting me like head punches, like body punches. Like everything you're saying hits so much. You mentioned something earlier. You say you tell the kids now, the youngsters now that you coach. We'll talk about that later. Every day, like every training session might be your last, and you say like that your career goes in a blink. I rejoined the GB squad in 2010, January 2nd, 2020, up in Sheffield, and Robert McCracken, who's still the GB head coach, he sat us down a little blue mat. And I remember I was a little bit annoyed because I was 21 years old. And in my head, I thought I was a man. Like, looking back, I was still a kid. Like, I barely had fucking armpit hair. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I was 21, I was a man. And he made us all sit down in this little blue foam. And, like, I've always had quite stiff legs. So, like, I can't sit cross-legged very well. So I'm sitting there, right? And Rob at the time was 42 years old. I was 21. He said, enjoy these next 2.5 years, because one day you're going to blink and your career's going to be over. And I was 21. I thought, oh, shut up, Rob. The old man speech, right? I blinked. I was 30 years old, blind in my left eye, retired from boxing. And at that moment, I was closer to Rob's age then than my age then. It just goes. And I was very unlucky with injuries and my career got cut short. But even if I had the career I wanted to have, I'd been 35, retiring around about now, my career would be over. And I remember that conversation like that. And it's so important to, and it's something you've done and something I did, rinse every bit of talent you have.
That's it. You've got to
maximize.
You've got to maximize everything every day. And, I was that same kid as you. When someone would say the same to me at 20, I'd be like, oh, you're old. I've got many years. But, it's when you get to our age now and you realize that it goes so quick. Time does go so by. So that's all my message to all the young kids is, just make the most out of every single opportunity and day that you've got.
So round 3, question number 3. Normally I'll take my person I'll talk to through their career now, and then we talk about their career, we get to the big point, and then adversity hits. But for me, looking from the outside looking in, and please tell me if I'm wrong, and I know there was adversity in your career, we'll come to that later, but you had, from my perspective, 2 big bits of adversity when you were still a kid. And rather than having this amazing career, then it happens. For me, it was like you had these 2 pieces of adversity that made your career. It switched, and you changed. You were able to change 1 or 2 of the worst things that ever happened to you into the best thing. So You mentioned a minute ago, firstly, you got let go by Arsenal at 15 years old. I mean, you were basically on the scrap heap like a lot of, like thousands of kids are when they get released. I've got two nephews at Norwich now. One's 12, one's 11, one's 8. And already they're thinking about contracts. And they're 8 years old. And like not being on that, not being the Bradley Johnson, right? So getting told you weren't good enough at 15 years old. Talk to me about that.
And I remember that call like it was yesterday. I was in my front room at home, and my dad got the call. We was expecting the call because, you know, it comes around that time at the end of the season. And I remember my dad got the call from Liam Brady, and I'm sat there, and, you know, as a little kid, you're looking for reactions from your dad and stuff like that. And straight away, as soon as he got into the conversation, you could tell. And from my dad's reaction, I could tell it wasn't good news. Not good news, not news that I wanted, that they were going to keep me on. And I remember it. Yes, I was heartbroken, broke down. You know, I was at Arsenal from 10 years old to 15, and at 15, that's when I got the news. And you know, when you're there, like every kid now, you that's all you think of. Oh, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be a footballer, and that's exactly what I was like. So at 15, for me to receive that news, it just felt like my world had crushed on me. And it's a phone call that I'll never ever forget. And that really, really did knock my confidence at that time. I was young.
And then, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but after that, you tried to keep your football dream alive, and you had a trial at Charlton, you didn't get in. A trial at Watford, you didn't get in. You've been rejected by Arsenal, by Watford, by Charlton, and then at school, you're messing around at school, being naughty, and then you got excluded from school. So even I heard you say before you got rejected from school. You faced all this rejection as a kid. Like, how do you, and again, to quote the podcast, how did you get back up? And was your belief, right? And then, sorry to interrupt, I know you're going to talk. Was your belief, the belief you have now, that there's the strong belief, was it always strong, or did it begin to waver?
No, it wavered, definitely wavered. Back then, when I said, so I got released, and then obviously went on trial, as you said, there's Watford and trial. By that time, they'd given out their YTSs. So I got no there. So I got told no from Arsenal, no from Watford, no from Charlton. And then what do you think, as a little kid, what do you think I wanted to do? I didn't want to put myself out there again. I didn't want to get another no.
Of course.
So my dad was phoning around, my dad was trying for me, and I didn't want to do it. And I just outright said, no, I don't want to go there no more because I don't want to get another no. So that was doubt in the back of my head, and my belief went then. So at that age, I tried to go back to my grassroots team as well. And what happened, I went back to the same team that I left when I was 10. When I was 10, I was a striker. I was scoring so many goals. I was one of the best players, and that's what got me to Arsenal. Yeah. So, but that time in between 10 and 15, that team had carried on, and I'd gone back there when I was 15. So when everybody heard I was going back to my Sunday League team, all the kids, all my mates were still there. They were buzzing that I was going to go back. They ain't seen me play for 5 years. They're thinking I was getting Bradley Johnson back, but I wasn't the same player when I left. So I left there as a striker, scoring goals. I went to Arsenal. I was playing left back. I was playing left midfield. They put you in different positions. And when I was 10 to 15, the reason I got released because they said I was too small. You know, I see it all now in the academy. They look at kids and try and predict their height and weight for, like, maturation is called. And you know, it's something that I don't really believe in because I've been through it. When I was 15, I was tiny. I didn't have a growth spurt until I was 17. So I got judged by then, and I went back to my Sunday League team. I was good, but the only thing I found hard was the physicality, grassroots. It's all about athleticism. So I was going back.
Yeah.
Every kid was bigger than me. Every kid was stronger than me. So when I went back there, I was struggling, and I could hear all the parents and all the players that thought I was going to be this. And Bradley's not even that good. What? He's struggling. So I could hear that in the back of my, and I wasn't playing the same I was playing when I left. So that knocked my confidence as well. And then you touched on about school. I had a hard time through school, and I think that's my own doing. And I'd say to young kids now, you've got to concentrate in school because, you know, I didn't. I just thought I was at Arsenal. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play for Arsenal. I'm going to be making. I'm going to be a footballer. So when I was at school, I didn't really have a keen interest in school. You know, all I thought about was football. And
Were you obsessed? Were you obsessed about the game like you tell kids to be?
Yeah. I was obsessed. I was obsessed. That's all I thought about. Wanted to play every time I could play football. Every opportunity I was playing football, and so in school I wasn't really a keen pupil. I was getting up to mischief and that stuff because I knew as soon as them bells went, I was going to play football, no matter where I was, rain, sunshine, whatever day it was, I was playing football. So yeah, I was getting into trouble at school, and you know, at school back then, my teachers didn't really like me because the way I was, and I don't blame them because all I thought about was football. So, you know, when I got into mischief at school, they thought of how could they punish me because they would punish me and I'd be like, I don't care because I'm going to play football, or they would exclude me from school, like suspend me from school, sorry. And in them days I was suspended, I was going to play football. That's all I wanted to do. So they thought of another way how to punish me. So every time I got into mischief at school, instead of calling my parents, at school they called Arsenal. So they knew what my love was. They knew that if they take football away from me, then that's what would hurt me. So they used to call Arsenal and call Roy Massey and complain to him. And it didn't go down with my parents well because my dad was like, well, why are you not calling us? Like, why are you going straight? Because they knew how they could hurt me, stop me playing football. So, yeah, they done that throughout the years. And then when I got released from Arsenal, I went back to school and I felt like the teachers were laughing at me. We told
you had a teacher say that to you, didn't you? You had a PE teacher say that to you.
Yeah, the PE teacher say that to me, that I'm never going to make it and it's just a fantasy that you're living. Yeah, it was that was the case. And then the next time I got in trouble at school, they couldn't punish me by calling Arsenal because I got released from Arsenal. So they kicked me out. So I was in year 9 at school at 15, yeah, and they excluded me from the school the next time I got in trouble. So again, the rejection from Arsenal, the rejection from all the clubs, the not being good enough, going back to my grassroots team, and then getting kicked out of school. That was the worst thing that happened to me at that time. Was all of them things like snowball. It was like a snowball effect. Got released, then I got kicked out of school, and then yeah, it was just. It took me a long while to get back. And I'm not gonna. It took me a long while to get that self-confidence back, the belief back. Do people believe in me? That took me a long while, and I sort of like cocooned myself and, you know, stayed in my house, didn't want to hang around my friends and sort of took myself away from everybody really and just become this kid who just ended up being in my house, being by myself, didn't want to be around people because I thought everyone was judging me and stuff. And yeah, it really did affect me when I was 15.
What was also happening, whether you were privy to it or not, you also building this like bulletproof armor, which is the reason why you play for 20 years at an elite level, you know. But again, when you were 15, 16 years old, something else happened, which for me, when I read up and looked at it, I was like, this is the moment. This is the moment when like Jono becomes Jono, or he becomes something very different to what you become. What happened?
So obviously after all that happened, I sort of took myself away from everybody, and then, as you said there, it's just building armor. So I had this shield up against me, and you know, I wanted to be loved. That's what I felt. I wanted people to like me. And being at that young age to get rejected so many times, it was like, where am I going to find this love from? And that's why now I know how easy it is for kids. I grew up on an estate in London, if nobody knew, and it's easy to get, you know, I see all this stuff that goes on in London, that it's easy to get dragged into the wrong stuff, and that's what happened to me. You know, I grew up on an estate, so the only place I felt loved and wanted were from my friends on the estate. And, you know, at that time, that's all I knew. So I was going out with my friends, hanging around, and there was not much for us to do back in the day in East London back then, and we were getting up to no good. And
what's no good?
No good, just like we got bunk. Well, I weren't at school. We were just hanging around the estate, going to house parties. What 15, 16-year-olds do back then, you know, on our bikes, going around, you know, driving mopeds when we shouldn't be, driving cars when we shouldn't be, just stuff like that. And that's where I felt love, though, with my friends, you know.
Yeah, tribal acceptance, wasn't it? You had it accepted. You lost the football team, lost the club, and you had this little support network where doing the right thing and the wrong thing. You felt that love, that connection.
It was like, yeah, and it weren't just like 6 or 7. There was a lot of kids in my estate, so it was like 20 of us, 25 of us, always going together, the same places, hanging around. We knew where each other was. Wake up in the morning, we'd go down to the park, everyone would be there. And that's how my days went for 18 months. And and obviously things escalate where you grow up in London. It's still going on now, all this postcode war. I was from an estate where they were fighting with another estate, didn't get on. And I got caught up in stuff like that, that's what I thought. I thought that's what I wanted to become. But then obviously this accident happened to me, and that's what made me realise I didn't. But at the time, 16, I thought had with friends and stuff like that, and I got involved, and I ended up getting stabbed in my legs at 16 due to coming from this estate and another estate fighting estate. We used to bump into each other all the time, and fights broke out. But then it wasn't until we were 16 that people started bringing out knives, and I got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I got stabbed in my legs. And it was a thing where we all knew each other because the estates were just around the corner, and a few of us went to school with each other. So, you see a lot of stuff on the news and stuff now, like stabbings, that everyone knows each other in the area. So we all knew, and they knew that I played football, or I used to play football. So that's why they targeted my legs. And we all knew each other, and people get phone calls after saying, "Oh, we've ended your football career, Bradley," stuff like that. And it wasn't until then that, and I say this to kids now, I speak a lot of stuff. And, for me, I thought I had loads of friends. I thought, as I said there, I was hanging around with 20, 30 of us every single day who I thought were my friends. It wasn't until I got stabbed who I realised who my real friends were. So I got stabbed. I was in hospital for 4 days. I think I had to have an operation on my legs. Then obviously when that happened, my mum and dad put their foot down. I wasn't going out of the house. So I was in the house my dad locked me in. So I couldn't go out and hang out in the estate. And it was only 2 people who come to visit me. And I thought I had a lot of friends. And then when a big event like that happens to you, you realise who your real people are. And it was from that day that, I knew I didn't want to go down that path because, if I carried on going that, and you said there, it could have went either 2 ways. The one way, which I did take it, took it into a positive, or I could have took it how most people might take it now. I'm going to go back and get revenge. And, I had them phone calls from my friends. Oh, we're going to get them back, and come on, let's go out and get them back. And I wasn't really wanting to go down that path because the only way that ends now, you've seen, is either you're dead or in prison. And at that time, I had this bravado of my friends and that, but I'll tell you now, I was scared, really scared. I didn't want to be involved in that because what started happening, I said we all knew each other, we all knew where we lived. I've had friends who, because of this little postcode war, they'll come around to their mum and dad's house and smash up their mum and dad's house, put bricks through their windows, and I was scared of that.
Yeah.
So every time I went out, I was really scared growing up where I grew up. So it wasn't until that stabbing that happened to me that made me realise what way I wanted to go. And after that, I was doing an apprenticeship in college and carpentry. So, and I was playing semi-pro. I was with Wolverhampton Forest, who joined up with a college program. But I couldn't go to the college because I didn't do no GCSEs because I got kicked out of school. So I had to go to college and I was training with them part-time. So after that, when that happened, my dad sat me down, and the worst thing for me was being in that hospital bed and seeing my mum, my dad, and my nan. My nan and my granddad worse because they were petrified, and it scared me. And then after that, it just really got my head down. I turned into a positive. I said, and I've always said this now, I know it's easy that I'm here to live the story, but people get stabbed in lesser places and die.
You wanted to better yourself, and true friend, like those 2 friends came to see you. Those 2 friends, those friends are the ones that want you to better yourself. They don't want you to be hanging around in the States.
The 2 people come to see me was one, my best friend Darren, who I'll speak to now, and it was a girl that I was seeing at the time. And the girl who I was seeing then, she's my wife now.
I've got a whole bit on your wife, how beautiful she is, mate. You 2 are a gorgeous, gorgeous couple. And your boys, goodness me, mate. When they get older, mate, just the other boys in class, nah. Game over. But listen, mate, we could end this podcast here, and it's already so inspiring, and we haven't even got to your career yet. The journey, so the career, question number 4, the career, man. Let's talk about this career, because you mentioned about the college, and there's kind of like it's your story is great because you didn't do the Messi, right? Messi went to La Masia as a kid, went through the system, became a big star. You did it hard. You're a journeyman pro. I know you like your boxing. You're like Marvin Hagler to me. Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, both fought each other. Both huge stars, right? They got to the top in the career, like you played in the Premier League, 100 games. But like he had a journeyman career. He had to really work hard. He had to fight, go around the world, fight for pennies. Leonard, who is one of my favourites, Olympic Games, gold medal, superstar from day one. Hagler wasn't that superstar. He had to really work hard. And you're very much like a journeyman pro. I love that. You've earned every penny you ever got paid. You really earned every move you ever had. You've earned that. So talk to me. Let's blitz through the career, the early part of the career. Although there's one thing I want to talk about, the early part of your career. I know you went to Cambridge and they gave you a chance. You had a trial, and you get to really work hard. Went up the leagues, as I said. But there's one thing I heard you say before. You had a chance. You could have went to Southend or Northampton, and Southend would have meant you going back to London, living at home. They were in the league above, presumably offering you more money, and you chose to stay out of London and go to Northampton. And you're still a kid. You're still a baby. You're still a teenager. That to me is huge. And I mentioned at the beginning earlier. I said, what made you different to everybody else? Somebody with limited, in your own words, limited potential and ability, God-given ability. It's those decisions for me that made you. That's why we're sitting here talking, because you made those decisions, a sacrifice.
Yeah. So I'll start back. Yeah, when I went to Cambridge. So it all come about obviously after I got stabbed. So at that time I was at Woburn Forest, and I'll never forget the guy, Dave Muir at the time, who started up the Barking Abbey College program. I couldn't go to college, so I couldn't train with the boys every day. They were training every day, and he said to me, "You can come and train with us one evening." So I was going to college, doing my apprenticeship, and going to train with them on a Thursday evening and playing on a Saturday. And then obviously that happened to me. And then my dad asked Dave, "Is there anything you can do?" And I phoned up Dave myself and said, "Oh, is there anything where you can help? Can I come in?" And he's like, "Look, I can't bring you into the college, but the first team who are joined with Woburn Forest, they train on a Monday night and a Wednesday night. And I'll ask the manager if you can go in there." And I said, "Look, listen, I'll go in there and pick up the bibs and cones if you want me to. Just, I want to do something. I don't want to be sat at home, or I don't want to be getting distracted again." So he said, he phoned up the first team manager, and Hackney's name was, said, "Oh, we've got one of the young lads, can he come down and train with you?" And I remember going down there and I was petrified, shitting myself. It must have been just turned 17 maybe. So I went there and went in training, and I done well. And the first team manager really liked me, and he started involving me a lot more. And I played a couple games for the first team in the Ryman Prem then.
Which, just so for those non-football fans, that is so far removed from Arsenal. That's so far removed from the Premier League. That is bumpy pitches. That's playing alongside players that, you know, they're builders on the day job and they play football on the weekend. You know, it's not what you think. Where Bradley got to, it is so far removed from the hallowed turf of Carrow Road. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it wasn't free. It was, you know, I was a kid playing 17, and grown men kicking me up because I was quicker than them at that time. They would kick me, but you know, I always look back at them situations, and that's what made me. So I went done that, and then I got a trial at Cambridge. And bearing this time, I was still at home, so I was still locked up in my house, going from my house to college, back to training. But bearing this mind, when you say locked up, I'm still having to go out, so I'm still seeing people that I don't want to see and going through the wrong. And you know, London, you go through a lot of areas, and some of the areas I had to go through to get to college were from the kids who didn't like where I'm from. So it was like to navigate my way around that. And then he sent me on trial to Cambridge for a week. There was two of us who went. And when he said, "Oh, I've got you a trial at Cambridge," I was like, "Dave, I'm not going to let you down. I'm going to go there and smash it." I went there for a week. They invited me back for another week, and then they made a decision. And Ricky Duncan, the coach, was there. He pulled Dave Muir and my dad. Said, "Look, we like Bradley. We want to keep him here. So, but we can't give him a contract. We can only offer him non-contract playing forms, which is. But what we will do, we'll give you, to my dad, we'll give you £20 or £40 expenses a week to bring him up on a Sunday night. But what we can offer is we will put him in digs with all the rest of the youth team. So they accommodate me living in Cambridge. I'll be there training with them every day. And when I play for the youth team on a Saturday, my dad will have to come because you can't stay in the digs on a Saturday night. I'll go home and then he'll bring me back up on the Sunday. So they said, we can give you expenses from that, but we can't pay Bradley, but we can get him accommodated, feed him every night and he can train. So it was a case where it wasn't a case of I'm doing it, I wanted to do it. So at that time I had in my mindset, right, this is my opportunity to go into a league club, and I don't care if I'm getting paid or not, but I know I'll be training every day, I'll have a roof over my head, and now it's down to me how far I can take this. Yeah, I went up there for 6 months I was there, so I was living in digs with 20 other lads. And I say this as well, people say this to kids as well, that me going up there from where I'm from in London and what I've been through, I found that hard. So when I went up to Cambridge, and you spoke about Sugar Ray Leonard and the other guy about where you come from, different backgrounds, I was living with 20 kids who have not had to struggle, or their parents have given them everything, and they come from a good family. I come from a good family. I can't say that, but they come from their life was settled. They'd never been anywhere past down from Cambridge into London. So when I went there, and coming from where I come from in London, the way I dressed, the way I spoke, I was not getting bullied, but they were like, oh, they took a...
You were different. And all of a sudden, sorry to interrupt, all of a sudden that tribal acceptance that you wanted, that you knew, that you wanted so much, you were the odd one again, you were the different one again. And it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, and then, it's like you have boxing banter, football banter, which I get now, but at that time there, you get bantered and they'll take your stuff. And, when you get bantered, the more you rap, the more people do it. So I remember they'd take my wash bag and I didn't like it. I wanted to fight everyone. It took me about a month. I had so many meetings with the head coach, Ricky Duncan. And, one thing as well, when you go sign at football clubs now, which I think it's still in now, you have to sing and you have to dance. And I was like, they told me, on Friday you got to sing and you got to dance. And I was like, sing for what? Sing for who? I've come here to play football. I'm not been a performer. They're like, yeah, on Friday you got to sing. So I remember the day after training, everyone got in the changing room like, Bradley, you got to get up and sing. And I was like, nope. And the coach come in and was like, Bradley, come on, it's only a minute. And I was like, sitting there, everyone's there. And I'm like, I ain't singing. I'm not doing it. And then just stuff like that, just what took me a while to get to. So it was like, I dressed different, I spoke different, my haircuts was different to all of them. And it took me about a month to adjust to not their living, but for them to take me and accept me again. So, but I think that worked in my favour when I went with the first team. And I'll never forget the first training session I had with the first team. It was Hervé Renard, the manager was a French guy. And, they just asked for 2 players to go and train with the first team. And I've been there about 6 weeks now. So Ricky Duncan just said, Brad, you're going to go with the first team today. And in my mind, when lads who have been called up before, they come in and like, oh my God, I'm training with the first team. Like, I'm nervous. And I'm looking at them thinking, I can't wait for this opportunity. Why are you so nervous? And I got the call. And I remember going in there thinking, right, this is my opportunity again. So I got my opportunity when I got told that I'm going to get put up in Cambridge. But the next step was going into the first team now. So I was buzzing. I could not wait. And what helped me when I went up there was because I'd played men's football previous to that. I knew what the environment was like. I knew how hard they tackled. I knew what a manager wanted from me, just work hard. And so I went up there, and I remember my first training session, I smashed one of the first team lads. And it was a talk of the training ground for about a week. I remember I went there, I went in for a 50-50 tackle. I got the ball, but, the first team lads looked at me as all this young boy. And it's like all the first team lads jumped in, oh my God, I must have smashed. I don't know who I tackled. It was a big player, and everyone couldn't believe it. And the player got up and he was like, yeah, watch what you're doing. And I was like, where I've grown up, I was like, I treat people how I would want to be treated, no matter your age, whatever. The way he spoke to me after I tackled him, I said to him, who the fuck are you talking to? Like, and they couldn't believe it. A young kid was answering a first team player back, which is frowned upon in football now. A young kid answering a first team, but that was in me. I knew where I wanted to go, and that guy was in my way out. So I trained how I played. I trained hard, and he had a go at me. I remember he not squared up to me because I was a little kid. He was having a go at me. Who the fuck do you think you are tackling like that? Watch what you're doing in training. And I remember the first team manager got up and he stopped it. He went, "Whoa!" He went, "Bradley, I love that. I love that. That's what I want to see." And he said to all of the squad, he said, because Cambridge was struggling at the time, he said, "That's how all of you should be training. We're near the bottom of the league. That's what we need. People like him should be training." And I was sat there like, And he loved me for that. And I was with the first team every day after that. And I played one game for them. And then, they got relegated that year. But then it was coming towards the end of the season. And because I was on a non-contract, sort of clubs sort of like hear about me. And then Northampton and Northampton come to watch me play for the youth team. And then I think we played Southend away for the youth team. And both first team managers were there. And they picked me out. They liked me. And Ricky Duncan spoke to them both. They were like, "Oh, what's Bradley's situation?" So Ricky told Colin Calderwood, and I think it was Steve Tilson, the manager at Southend at the time, said, "Look, this kid, he's on a non-contract. We're getting relegated. I don't think the club are going to hand out new contracts, so he might be available for free." Mm-hmm. And what Ricky done for me back then, I'll never forget. He come up to me and my dad and said, "Look, Northampton want you to go down there on trial for a week, and Southend want you to go down on trial for a week. But the club won't let you go. But what you can do is call up 1 week sick and say you're ill, and then don't come and go to Northampton. Come back for a few days, say you're still ill, and go to Southend." So I might get him in trouble now if he hears this. Come the end of the season when we knew what was happening with Cambridge, we were getting relegated. They both come back in for me and said they want me to sign. And as you said there, Northampton, I can tell you now, Northampton offered me £200 a week as a pro contract, and Southend offered me £400. Northampton was in League Two, and Southend were in League One. But if I signed at Southend, I would have to live at home and commute in every day. Northampton gave me that contract, and they gave me a flat as well. So they put me up in Northampton, and it was a no for me. I was like, I'm going Northampton. I am not. I've worked hard now. This 6 months, I've got my head down, trained hard. I'm not going back to London. Like, I'll go back to London and see my family, but this is where I want to be now. I want to be. The best thing for me is to be out of London. I don't want to go back to London and be distracted again by my friends and be caught up in all that. But again, we speak about sacrifices, and that's the sacrifice that I had to make. I think I made that decision at 18, 19.
Well, I beat so many boxers that were better than me, and something I'm very proud of actually is in boxing. You can, of course, you can improve your speed. Of course, you can improve your power. Of course, you can improve certain things. But Mike Tyson was born with devastating power. Muhammad Ali was born with unbelievable speed. Usain Bolt was born, of course, as a sprinter. Of course, they trained to run faster. But you're not gonna, some little fat fella. He's not gonna run faster than Usain Bolt. He wasn't built that way. So we can improve certain things, but we can't control power, speed, whatever. But what you can control is your fitness, and you can control your work rate. That's the one thing you really have control over. When you walk to the ring, when you cross the white line in football, you can control your effort. You can control how hard you work. That's all down to you. And I think I used to something, a phrase I'd have up and I put a little post in when I was in the change room, is I'd want to take my opponent to the trenches and drown him in the mud. That, to me, that means I'm going to outwork him. I'm going to make him box at pace he doesn't want to fight at. Because I know he punches harder than me. I know he's faster than me. I know he's got better footwork than me. But when I take him to that level, he doesn't want to fight. He'll start making mistakes. He'll get gassed before I get gassed. I'll push him to level. And I love that about you. Again, that's that journeyman pro, that work ethic, that drive. And the work ethic is what we have. So, Northampton, man, this has been fascinating. I've got so many questions I want to ask you, but I'm not out of time. But from Northampton to the Premier League, what is that? What is that trajectory? How does that even happen? Do you think it can happen? Was that your goal, to one that will play in the Premier League, or was that like the lights of the Premier League were so far away you didn't even really believe it? How does it happen?
It was always a dream. I'll be lying if I say I didn't dream of the Premier League, but I never looked too far ahead. So my goals were always reachable, if that makes sense. So I would never, I'd say, be in a conference and think, next year I'm going to be in the Premier League. It was so. Yeah. I was at Northampton. I got into the first team there. I played every game under Stuart Gray, and then I went to Leeds.
Sorry to jump with the Leeds thing, because Leeds are a massive club. Leeds are a monster of a club, right? A huge club. Like they got like people in America where I am now. They know who Leeds are.
Yeah.
Americans don't know a lot about football, but the ones that do know Leeds, right? They're a big club. That phone call, how does that work? You're playing for Northampton. Oh, Leeds on a buy it. What? Like, what's that? What's that like? And what money were you talk? What money were you on? What money you were going to go to? Level of stature? What was all that about?
The Leeds come out like last minute, so it was. I think it was the transfer window in the August. I've obviously, I'm coming to the end of my contract at Northampton, and I think they wanted to sell me because their financial status at the time. They wanted to get money for me, so. It was Leicester and Coventry at first who were really interested, and then I think what happens in football when clubs hear and other clubs interested, they jump in. And I went to Coventry and had a speak with them, walked around the training ground and everything, and then I went to Leeds. But you got to remember, Leeds were in League One still at this time.
They were in League One. They were in League One. Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So I went up, drove up. I remember I drove up with my brother in the car, and my agent come up. And driving through the gates at Thorpe Arch, it was mind-blowing. Because where I come from Cambridge, where we ain't got a training ground or anything. Northampton, we didn't have a training ground. We trained next to the stadium around the racetrack, and then going to Leeds, driving through it was the training ground. What you said there, it's a massive. It is a massive club. Still is a massive club. Was a massive club, and went to the training ground and. I was like, wow, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be every day. Turn up into this training ground.
What money were you on? How much you get by? How much were you bought for? 21 years old. I find that fascinating. When you're 21 years old, you're still a kid. At 21, I went to GB squad. I was getting £400 a month. And I thought, oh, I've cracked it. And that was my worth. I guess I thought I was worth £400 a month, which is silly now. But at the time, that's what I worth because I'd been out in the cold for 2 years, like you, when you were like locked at home.
Yeah.
Like your self-value kind of like obviously diminishes. But what were you... If you can say, what kind of money were you on and how much were you bought for?
At Northampton, I obviously signed a new contract there. I was on £500 a week. And then when I went to Leeds, they bought me for £250,000 and my wages went up to £2,000 a week. Yeah.
It's not bad. 21-year-old, it's not bad, is it?
Now a 21-year-old will probably turn their nose up about it. The money they're getting now. But for me, yeah. And again, it wasn't for me, I think, it just shows the way my path went. It was never about money for me. So it was all about the next level. What's going to help me get to the next level and testing myself at the highest possible level I could. So although it was great to earn £2,000 a week at 21, I went up there, I bought my first car, I've got a flat, I was living by myself, and that independence, it was great. But it was never about the money for me. But it did change, and it did change from where I was at Northampton when I went to Leeds. Big city. See the lights, it was a great city to live in, Leeds. And but for me, it was just being at that place, being at the club, and going into that training ground every day, playing in front of, you said the jump. I said there we were still in League One, so it wasn't like I was leaving Northampton and going to another league. I was still staying in the same league, but I was playing in front of 20,000 fans every week at Ellen Road, and that was crazy. From where I've come from at Cambridge to Northampton, maybe getting 8,000, 7,000. To go into Leeds, getting 20. I remember my first pre-season trip away, we went to Ireland. We played a pre-season friendly, and there was 13,000 fans there, a pre-season friendly. I could not believe it. And that just goes to show how big the club was.
So I want to get to the Premier League. So Leeds, you get the phone call, Norwich want you. How does that come about?
It come about as not weird, but I went through a bad time at Leeds, not with the club, with the chairman. And I think it was evident in that last season that I was with at Leeds, because I was there for 4 years. We got promoted back to the Championship, and they start bringing in players. And you got to remember, I'm on the same contract that I was on when I signed. So we're in the Championship now. We got promoted from League One. We're in the Championship, and we're like 4th or 5th in the Championship. And that's what surprised me as well. The level from League One to the Championship. It's a big jump. But the team that we had at that time...
Who'd you have?
We had Jermaine Beckford, Luciano Becchio. We had Johnny Howson. We had Robert Snodgrass.
Oh, you had a great team. Half Norwich squad.
Yeah, Matt Cradle. I think of another Norwich one. Steve Morrison will come in there. But we had Fabian Delph. We had the team we had was a good team. So when we went into League One, to the Championship, we competed, and we were like fifth, and by January we were like fifth, and we just go back before that. So when we went up, obviously the club strengthened. They signed like players who thought were better than us and at that level. And as clubs do, when you get promoted, contracts go up. So there was players who had come in who had not worked hard to get the club where they are, like not been there when League One, but were living the fruits of our hard work and coming into a massive club in Leeds in the Championship, and they weren't playing, and I was playing every week, keeping these players out who...
Do you not, like, when a player comes in, let's say, so you've gone to a Championship, they've maybe bought, argument's sake, they maybe bought a Premier League player to come in on much more money than you. Do you know what that player, how much he's earning? Do you boys talk in the change room?
Yeah, everyone talks. No one will know the exact figure, because either the player lies and says he's on more. If you're going to ask the player, oh, how much are you earning? They're going to be like, oh, I'm on 50 grand a week, when they're on probably 10 or something. Everyone lies. But no one knows the exact figure, but like people speak, and whereabouts what they're earning because of what you got with it now, the social media, the newspapers, everything. Everyone knows like who your top earner is. You don't know exactly what they're on, but everyone knows whereabouts like you stand. And when we went into the Championship, there was a big jump from League One to the Championship in wages, and these players were coming in and they're earning Championship wages where we're still on League One wages, but we're playing every week. And it weren't just me; it was a few other players who left for free in the end. So I remember we got to like January time, and all we needed was a few. And the manager will say this as well, Simon Gratian. We just needed a few more bodies in to help us, because we were competing, we were doing really well, and we probably surprised ourselves a little bit. But the team we had, we were doing really well. We just needed a few maybe extra bodies in to come and help us, because we had a thin squad, and try and make the playoffs and try and do that double promotion. But at the time, Ken Bates, was there at the time, and he was hard work to deal with. They offered me a contract, and it wasn't anywhere near what he's come out and said. And I just didn't want to sign it. I didn't sign it. I rejected it, and he come out and threatened me and said, if you don't sign it, we're going to put you on a transfer list. And I was just like, and I would go into the manager, Simon Grayson. He was like, look, I totally agree with you. I want you to be here, but he's got to deal with him as well. So Ken Bates really didn't have the club at his heart. I think he wanted to build like a hotel on the stadium for revenue. So at that time I was 23, and I don't know if it still happens now. You get the Bosman rule where you can leave for free at a certain age, and I was coming into that category. So I left for free. The season finished. I think we finished 7th or 8th in the Championship. Our first time back in the Championship, and I was for free. So I had many clubs interested me at the time. Sunderland were one. Steve Bruce. I was playing with Alex Bruce. He was interested. Norwich were interested, and then the same. I spoke to all. I remember I was in Bali on holiday with my wife, and Paul Lambert phoned me, and spoke to him. And I don't know if you come across him. I know he's had a rough time since leaving Norwich with the fans and stuff. But for me, he sold me the dream. He sold me the club. And when I went and met him, it was just this is where I want to be. I want to come to Norwich now. Just got promoted to the Premier League. Again, I'm coming into a new challenge. Can I test myself in the Premier League? And I just felt that meeting Paul Lambert, this was the right move for me. And then I signed for Norwich.
And you hung in the Premier League straight off the bat.
Yeah, but that was, again, I go back to the team as well, because you've got to remember the team that we had in the Premier League then come from League One to the Championship and then the Premier League. So I remember my first day when I come down to Conley and spoke to Paul Lambert. I said, are you signing anyone else? And he said to me, I'm not signing anyone you'd know. I'm not signing anyone who's been there and done it. I'm not signing any players who played in the Premier League. I want players who want to be in the Premier League. He said, that's why I brought you in, because I see how you play, I see where you've come from. And he said, I believe you can handle the Premier League, but I want my team to be full of players hungry who want to be in the Premier League. And that's what he had. His whole squad had come from League One. Never played in the Premier League before.
And what was the most obvious difference between League 2, 1, Championship, Premier League?
Make one mistake in your own defensive half and it's a goal.
Just the quality is that good?
I've said this before. You're losing the ball for me as a midfielder, if I lose the ball in midfield, I said there, I'm losing the ball on the edge of my box to David Silva or Yaya Toure, and it's a goal. Whereas in League Two, you can get away with having more mistakes in League One, and the Championships were a bit, but the Premier League is a lot slower. I don't know what it's like now because it's changed now, but in the defensive third and the middle third, it's a lot slower. Like it's all about passing and stuff. But then in the final third, it's like that. Like teams get in the final third, and bang, 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 goal.
Yeah.
You make a mistake, you're getting punished. You make one mistake, you're getting punished.
Mate, honestly, I could talk to you all day long. I want to get through the rest of these questions. What is your greatest achievement in football? It's got to be Wembley 2015, surely. Come on.
You know, and before that, I went to Wembley a few times and lost, and it's the worst feeling ever. But to go there, you know, I wouldn't want to do it again. If you ask me, I'll get promoted automatically or go to Wembley, and you're not guaranteed that. I'm like, no way would I go to Wembley again.
Really?
But but to do it at Wembley, you know, the home of football, walking up them steps and lifting a trophy that's the highlight of my career. And to do it with it was half and half Middlesbrough, half Norwich, all 40,000 of our fans there. Yeah, that was the highlight of my career.
That's a great day to be a fan as well. I was there, mate. Unbelievable. Who I expected to be different answers here as well. Who's inspired you in your life? And we've kind of spoken. We've spoken about two, young Bradley, football about it, and we haven't really spoken about current Bradley, the future. We'll come on to that in a bit. But who's been your what or who has inspired you through these chapters in your life?
Obviously, the obvious one, my dad and my immediate family. But for me, my idol growing up was Ian Wright. It still is to this day. For me, I read his book when I was 19. And like you said there, when I'm speaking, you're relating. When I read his book, I felt like I was reading my story. You know, the way he come up, you know, I didn't go to jail, but he went to jail. He come from a rough upbringing. Yeah. He didn't get into the game till he was 24. I think it was late.
What about now? So you're now going into the world of coaching, and you can be a great. You're going to be a great coach and mentor to youngsters, young impressionable lads as well. Like I'm thinking now, like my nephew. So I'm going to send this podcast to my nephew. He's only 8 and 12. But I want him to listen to this. I want him to listen to what it takes. And I think you're going to be a great mentor to young impressionable lads that want that community that you searched for as a kid, that I searched for, I couldn't find. I found in boxing, you found in football. So who inspires you now in this chapter of your life?
I know it's probably a cliche, but for me, my kids. Like everything I do now is for them. So yeah, they inspire me. They every time I'm lucky enough to be at home with them now and take them to school. But yeah, my kids inspire me to go out, and I want them to be proud of me, not as a footballer anymore. I'm not a footballer anymore, so they're going to get used to that, not watching me play on a Saturday. But for me, I want to make them proud, and you know, whatever I go into now, I'm giving my all, and hopefully one day they can turn around and say, "Oh, my dad was this, my dad was that." So yeah, that's my inspiration now.
That's what about as a coach? What kind of coaches inspire you now? Well, also, and coaches you've played under or played with, in terms of they played under, sorry, and coach you see out there doing now. What kind of coach do you want to kind of be like, or take snippets from?
Yeah, I'll take snippets from every coach, and obviously you got your top ones and that. But a coach for me this season that I've really liked watching is Zerbier from Brighton.
Yeah,
you know the way he's coming from wherever he come from, not being known, and the way he got Brighton playing. You know, everyone talks about, it's just risky football, you know, and he's gone off the ball a little bit now. But for him to make an impact like he has done in the Premier League in such a short space of time, you know, and I know his journey because I've looked at him now. I know where he's come from, and he's worked the hard yards to get where he is now. And I know that as a coach now, I'm not just going to go into a first team that's going to be clicking straight away. I know I've got to do my groundwork first, so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, which we'll go on to. But for me, for coaches, I think I've always said this. I've got 4 coaches that I would take snippets out of. For me, I played under Steve McLaren, and the way he played and the way he coached, I'll take that out of him. Gary Rowett as a manager, like a human. He got the human side of managing, like the personal skills. He had that. So he treated everyone the same. He was honest. You know, he had the hard conversations and the easy conversations. And that's all you want from a manager. You just want to be honest. And I played under Liam Manning last year, and he's a bit of a new school manager where, again, tactical. He was very, very good. Caring, he had that humanity side to him as well. And he's gone on to Bristol City and done really well.
Your journey, mate, from Hackney to professional footballer, from council estate to the man you live in now, mate. From getting kicked out of school to playing at Wembley, husband, father, football, 600 appearances, 20 years. 2 questions. What lessons have you learned? And interpret that any way you want. And what are you most grateful for?
The lessons that I've learned is not just football. Life is about opinions. Not everyone's going to like you. So in football terms, not every manager going to. I'd say that because of the rejections I had at that time, that person didn't like me. It don't mean that you're not going to go on and make it. And I say this to lads now all the time who have just been released. Just because one team or club don't fit for you, then it doesn't mean that everyone's the same. Football is about opinions and life's about opinions. And, just because one person's opinion is bad of you, don't mean everyone else is going to think the same.
I like that.
I'm grateful for every club I've represented. I know it's not easy to be a footballer. You touched on the statistics before, 0.001%. So I'm grateful that I am part of that statistic, that I have made it. And every club that I've represented has got me, helped me get me my 20-year career, helped me play 600 games. And I'm grateful for every manager I played under. Some, looking back, some when I was there, maybe I didn't like at the time, but I took lessons from all of that time.
What's next, mate?
For me now, I want to be. I say I want to be. I'm doing it now. When football, as you said there, when football career it goes like that, and you don't really think it's ever going to end. As a 20-year-old, you don't think it's going to end. And I remember this. Yeah. It was when I was at Norwich. Gary O'Neill. He said to me, "Oh, Brad, I'm doing my badges this year." I think I was 26 or 28. He's like, "I'm doing my badges this year. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Listen." And I think every young lad or old my age now would say that they were the same when I'm going to say this, is that when I was 25, if someone said to me, "Oh, you want to do your badges?" I was like, "Listen, when I finish football, I don't want anything to do with it."
Yeah.
Like many people would say that, and many older pros now. When I finish football, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm going to go and live my life. But I've done my badges with him now, and really enjoyed it. I didn't expect to enjoy it so much, but for me now, and I said this before, I think it will be, now I'm older, I can sit here, I'm wise ahead. I think it would be cruel for me to finish my career and just leave football. I think I've got so much more to give back to these young people.
Oh, mate, you got so much to give, man. Like, just talking to you for the last hour or so, you got so much to give, so much knowledge and wisdom, and not just about football, but about life as well. Do you want to be a manager or head coach or a first team coach, or would you want to be one of the coaches? Do you want to be the boss or be part of a training team?
I get this question asked a lot. If I sat here now, I wouldn't say I want to be a manager just yet. I know I've got a lot to learn. And I know, because I always go back to where I come from and what I've done. If I wanted to be a bricklayer tomorrow, I'm not going to go to a company tomorrow and say, "I'm the head boss. I ain't laid a brick." So I can't, do you know what I mean? I'm trying to explain it. So I can't just turn around and say tomorrow, "Oh, I've played 600 games. I want to be a manager." It doesn't matter. And that's what people get mixed up. And people, you might look at me and say, "Oh, you've played 600 games. You'd be a great manager." Playing to managing are two totally different things. It's a job thing that I want to do one day, but I can't sit here and say to you now, and I want to be a manager. I do, but I know I've got a lot of work to do to get there, and a lot of learning.
That's really humble, man. That's really humble to hear. We hadn't even spoken about the goals. I wanted to hear about super quickly. You're playing for Norwich. That 2015 season, got promoted to the Premier League. Mate, you were that season. I hadn't seen the players as well. And it's a shame it wasn't in the Premier League. Obviously, it would have been different because Premier League standards better, of course. But that 2014-15 season, unbelievable, mate. What, 20 goals? You were scoring, like, unbelievable. Like, where's this come from? And then get promoted to the Premier League. And then I don't want to say we, 'cause I'm not involved in this decision. They sell you. What the fuck? My mate texts me, Jono's going to go to Derby. I went, nah. Go on Sky Sports News, 7 million or whatever. I'm like, how does that happen? How like, obviously you got promoted to the Premier League. You're definitely a Premier League player. The best player in the previous season to get us there. You mentioned earlier about playing for Leeds. So you bled, you sweated to get us back up to the Premier League. And they call you and say, no, you go and we're going to take the money for you. So, wow. As the man, one of the main guys to get us back up to the Premier League, what's that feeling like when you're called up and say, hey mate, we don't need you anymore?
Yeah, it was a bizarre phone call for me. I was very shocked because the previous season to that, I just signed a new deal at Norwich till I was 32. I was settled there, bought a house, my kids were in school, and that's where I saw me finishing at Norwich, and I had that planned in my head when I signed that contract. And yeah, to get that phone call to say, look, we've had a bid for you and we've accepted it, especially coming from the season before, like you just said there, the player of the season, getting promoted, scoring so many goals, being told by the club, oh, thank you for staying, because when we got relegated, I could have left. I could have stayed in the Premier League.
Who could you have went to?
So I think Burnley were in the Premier League at the time. They wanted me. And a few players did leave, but with the team that I had there and I was settled at Norwich, I knew we'd go straight back up if we kept the same team. A few players left. But and then to be thanked, oh, thank you for staying, thank you for getting us back up. And then 3 months later, being told that we've accepted a bid for you. It was hard for me to take, and but then again, I said there at the time, football, it's a business, and for me, I loved it there. But then when that happened, it's like anything in life, you can't stay somewhere where you're not wanted or valued.
Right, I'll knock out these quick fire questions. First one's not even really quick fire. First one's quite a long one, but what was the moment in your career where it just happened? And I say this, what does just happen mean? My equivalent is I just won the Junior Olympics and I was on a plane home from Texas to England, and the pilot and done an announcement, Anthony Ogogo, Luke Campbell won gold medal at the Junior Olympics. The whole plane gave me a round of applause. What, this is fucking weird. I landed, and rather than I'd won like national titles before, had my name in the Lowestoft Journal, in the Eastern Daily Press, newspapers, and now my name's in the Sun, in the Daily Mirror. And that moment for me was like, oh, they switched, and I was like, oh, I could do this. What was your moment?
For me was when I was being called Bradley Johnson, the Premier League football player.
All the clubs you played for, what was the best locker room in terms of culture and mentality?
I would say, and that's not just because you're here, it would be the Norwich, first season at Norwich.
First season.
Yeah, because the lads that we had, we had the John Ruddies, Wes Houlihan, Grant Holt, Crofty, David Fox, Simon Lappin.
World War III breaks out. You get a phone call, Bradley, you got to go to war. Fuck. In the trenches, proper old school World War I stuff. You got 2 former players you can pick to go to war with. Who'd you pick?
Setbacks comes to my mind straight away. I don't know why. He comes to my mind. I do know why, because he won't fight him. He's like a big grizzly bear. Grant Holt sticking in my head.
All right, you've just robbed the bank, right? What 2 former players you played with that you wouldn't want to rob a bank with, they'd get you nicked?
Leon Barnett. Played with a lad at Derby, Mason Bennett.
Who's the best player you played with?
Hands down, Wes Houlihan.
Most underrated player, either with or you played against?
Johnny Howson.
Most overrated player you've played with or against? A player where you just think, I don't get it.
The big bad wolf, Ricky Van Wolfswinkel.
I've heard you say before you've got some regrets. What's your biggest regret when it comes to football?
Biggest regret would be not getting promoted with the Derby team that I had.
Hardest worker you know?
Apart from myself.
I was going to say, mate, you can say yourself if you want. Mate.
I'd say Alex Tay. Yeah.
What's harder, getting injured, getting sold when you don't want to go, or getting relegated?
Getting relegated.
You mentioned about 3 years, 4 years, 3 years over the course of a 20-year career. That's a number of different clubs, all really, really good clubs, great fans and stuff. Did you ever feel like, again, I use the word again, and I mean it in the most, the politest way. Like the journeyman pro, you moved here, you do a great job, you move here. Would you have, if you can be the architect of your own life and choose how your career would have went, would you have rather spent 10 years at a career like you made from Derby? Would you rather, because like the thing with Bradley Johnson is like, Bradley Johnson, although he's an amazing career, you know, and achieved so much in a career, I'm going to end on something in a minute, but I don't want to steal the words I'm going to say at the end. But you're not really synonymous with one club. You're there for a bit. Would you have liked to have been synonymous with one club? Or do you like the fact you were there for a bit, you got, and the thing is with you as well, from my understanding, every bunch of fans love you because you gave it all, even 90 minutes, you know, you were the hardest work on the pitch. You gave it all. You left all on the ring, as we say in boxing, and people, they respect that. But would you have liked to have done it for a longer period at one club, or were you quite content to move around?
Yeah, I think I've been quite content to move around because every move I've had, it's been another challenge, and I like challenges. Like I'm not going to say if I went for a club and I'm there for a period of time, I'll get bored. But I do like challenging myself, and you know, maybe if I was at a club for 10 years and we had 3 years in the Premier League and got relegated and 2 years in the Championship, that would be ideal. If you said to me, you could have a 10-year period at a club and it'll be all them 10 years of being in the Premier League, would you take that? And I'd be like, I'd want to challenge myself. I want to go down a league, go up a league. But obviously, people probably look at me and think, you're lying. But I've always liked to challenge, and I've always wanted to challenge myself. And I think throughout my career, every club I've been to has been a different challenge for me personally, and I think I wouldn't change that for anything.
Final question, mate. I've asked you this on private, I'm going to ask you again publicly. Who is better? Scholes, Lampard, Gerrard? End the debate now. Just finish it. Wrap it up. Tie a nice little bow on it.
Personal preference, Gerrard.
Really? I'm sure I asked you once, you said to me Scholes.
I say that because I played against him probably about 2 weeks before you asked me that. It's my retirement and I couldn't get near him.
I was scrolling through Instagram Christmas time and I saw you were away with your missus and the kids at Christmas time, right? Messing around. By the way, your boys, like, they used to fight. Do they still fight a lot?
I'm surprised you didn't hear that. I told them before I come on here, I told them to be quiet. I'm doing a podcast and you ain't heard
But
it.
you've got this life on Instagram. It's just like, wow, man. I was scrolling through Christmas time. You're away with your family. Your missus is stunning. And she's a lovely lady as well. There for you when you got stabbed. Been there for the last 20 years. That's amazing. Your kids. You've just got one of those, you've played, as I've written under, you've played 100 games in the Premier League. Like over 600 games in your career. You made it. You were that 0.001% that made it. And I remember at Christmas scrolling through. I had I was in a bad mood at the time. And I looked at it. I just thought, fucking well done, mate. Honestly, I thought, well done. A little nod. And I just put my phone down and I had a little I said I was in a really bad mood at the time. I was in a bad place in my life. But I had a little wry smile to myself and I thought, you fucking done it. I was going to say, mate, how proud of you I am as a mate, as a football fan. You've done it. And I have no doubt that you're going to go on this next chapter of your life, this new career of yours. You're going to smash it, mate. That work ethic that you have, that self-belief that you have, they don't leave us, you know? And that's built in the DNA of you from all the things you went through as a kid and your family and how they raised you. Mate, you're a legend. And I actually said it on a post today. I went on Instagram today and I wrote hero. And I mean that, dude. I think you have got so much to give people. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your unbelievable story today.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been a pleasure, mate.
I've known Johnny for a long time. Little story I'll tell, actually. Years and years ago, we had a night out together in Norwich. We had a few too many Jaeger bombs at the bar, and it just moved house. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. And I actually forgot. My friend reminded me. I text my mate. I text Skin Man. So Skin Man, I got another big Norwich fan. I got John on the podcast tomorrow. What should I ask him? He said, remind him if he remembers going back to the wrong house after we got pissed up one night. I think it just moved house. John had just moved house. And I think Norwich had played that day at home. Me and my friends had a night out. I text Jono, he was out. We met up at some bar, had a few drinks together, too many Jaeger bombs. And I think he went home to his old house rather than a new house because he was so pissed. But what a geezer, man. What a nice man. And so much inspiration there. So much. Like, there are so many times in his life where he could have went left, could have went right. And at the very beginning, he said that he had this self-belief, this unwavering self-belief, as George Grove says in his podcast way back at the beginning, many, many, many months ago. Well worth listening to. Go back and listen to that one from last year. Unwavering self-belief that he had, and that comes from his work ethic. I literally say those things when I go to schools and talk to kids or go to businesses and give talks. Self-belief, hard work. The harder you work, the more belief you have. The more belief you have, there's more reason to work hard. And I'm just so glad he said what he said today. And as I said at the beginning of this podcast, like, I urge you to pass this podcast on and encourage people to listen to this, because I thought it was just so good. I got a little bit of fanboy at times talking about certain things in football that I want to learn about. But I hope you found it interesting as well. But what a guy, and I wish Bradley all the very best for his next chapter in life and his next career as a coach. I think he's going to be fantastic. I really think he has this life journey where he can really relate to so many kids, so many young men in particular, and he'll have a massive, really positive impact on their lives. And I hope this podcast in itself, this last hour or so, can inspire people in the same way that I wish to inspire people. So John, mate, you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your story. And you lovely listeners, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Now I urge you to please subscribe. It really helps the podcast grow. Please subscribe, please leave a review, please share the podcast to somebody you think is gonna benefit by listening to it. It really, really helps me grow this podcast. I want this podcast to be really, really big and help and inspire as many people as humanly possible. Come back next week for another really inspiring, positive podcast, and take care. I'll see you next week.